In the heart of a bustling city where the sounds of honking cars and chattering pedestrians filled the air, Jack stood behind the counter of Mel's Diner, a small eatery that had seen better days. At 30, Jack carried the weight of unfulfilled dreams on his shoulders. His aspirations of becoming a renowned chef felt more like distant stars than attainable goals. Instead, he spent his days ringing up orders, serving coffee, and flipping burgers, all while imagining the flavors and dishes he longed to create. As the morning rush began to wane, Jack's gaze drifted towards the front window, where sunlight filtered through the glass, casting a warm glow over the diner. He noticed a frail old man sitting alone at a booth, his gnarled fingers meticulously counting loose change. The man's name was Harold, a regular at the diner, though Jack had never spoken to him beyond the casual exchange of greetings. Today, however, something tugged at Jack's heartstrings. He could see the uncertainty in Harold's eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly as he handled the coins. With a deep breath, Jack decided to act. He walked over to the booth and smiled at Harold, who looked up, a hint of surprise flashing across his weathered face. "Good morning, Harold," Jack said cheerfully, trying to mask the concern that lingered in his voice. "What can I get you today?" Harold hesitated for a moment, glancing at the menu as if it were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "I'll just have the special," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I might not have enough for it." Jack felt a pang of empathy. He could see the old man's struggle, and in that moment, he made a decision that felt right. "Don't worry about it," Jack said, his tone warm and reassuring. "It's on me today." Harold's eyes widened in disbelief. "You don't have to do that, young man. I can manage," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "I insist," Jack replied, a friendly smile breaking across his face. "Consider it a gift. You've been coming here for years, and it's the least I can do." With a reluctant nod, Harold accepted the offer, and Jack hurried to place the order, his heart swelling with a sense of satisfaction. After a few moments, he returned with a steaming plate of meatloaf, mashed potatoes and green beans, setting it gently in front of Harold. "Here you go, enjoy," Jack said, his enthusiasm contagious. As Harold picked up his fork, he seemed to struggle to find words. Finally, he looked up, his eyes glistening with gratitude. "Thank you, Jack. You have no idea how much this means to me." Jack shrugged, brushing off the praise. "It's just food, Harold, but I'm glad you like it." The old man took a bite, and Jack watched as the tension in his face melted away. "My late wife used to love the meatloaf here," Harold said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "She'd always say it reminded her of home. I guess I've been coming here to hold on to those memories." Jack leaned against the booth, captivated by the story unfolding before him. "What was her name?" he asked, genuinely interested. "Margaret," Harold replied, a soft smile breaking through the sadness. "She was a wonderful cook, always experimenting with new recipes. I suppose that's where I got my love for food. I miss her every day." Jack nodded, feeling an unexpected connection to the old man. "I've always wanted to be a chef. I dream of opening my own restaurant one day." "Really?" Harold's interest piqued. "What kind of restaurant?" "Something cozy, where people can come together over good food," Jack explained, his passion evident in his voice. "I want to create dishes that bring back memories, just like your wife's meatloaf." Harold's expression turned contemplative. "You should pursue that dream, Jack. Life is too short to settle for anything less than what you truly desire." As they exchanged stories, laughter, and shared memories, the diner around them faded into the background. For Jack, this simple encounter was more than just a meal paid for out of sympathy. It was an awakening. He felt inspired by Harold's tales, realizing that there was more to life than the monotonous routine he had been following. After their meal, as Harold finished the last bite, he looked up at Jack with a twinkle in his eye. "You know, I've seen many ups and downs in my life, but kindness is what keeps us going." Jack smiled, feeling a sense of hope and purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. "I guess we never know how much a small act can mean to someone else." "Exactly," Harold replied, nodding slowly. "You've made my day, Jack. Thank you for that." As the old man prepared to leave, Jack felt a tug of disappointment wash over him. He realized he didn't want their encounter to end here. "Hey, Harold," he called out, as the man stood up, gathering his things. "If you ever want to talk or need someone to share a meal with, I'm here. I'd love to hear more about your wife and your life." Harold paused, a smile brightening his face. "I'd like that, Jack. I really would." As Harold exited the diner, Jack returned to the counter, a newfound energy surging through him. He wiped down the surface with a cloth, but his mind was elsewhere, reflecting on the conversation he had just shared. It struck him how two strangers from vastly different walks of life could connect so deeply over something as simple as a meal. Jack glanced at the clock on the wall. The diner would soon fill up with the lunch crowd, but his heart felt lighter. He had spent years waiting for someone to notice him, to believe in him, and in a matter of moments, Harold had unknowingly done just that. He felt a surge of determination to chase his culinary dreams, to make something of himself beyond the confines of the diner. As the afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the floor, Jack realized that sometimes it only takes a small moment of kindness to ignite the spark of hope. He resolved to keep in touch with Harold, to learn more about the man who had unwittingly inspired him to dream again. With his spirits lifted, he continued his shift, serving customers with a newfound enthusiasm. Little did he know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would intertwine their lives in ways he could never have imagined. The diner buzzed with the morning rush, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the scent of sizzling bacon. Jack stood at the register, ringing up customers with a warm smile. Though his thoughts drifted to Harold, the elderly man who had unexpectedly entered his life. It had been a month since their first encounter, and Jack had made it a point to check on Harold regularly. Each visit had peeled back layers of Harold's life, revealing a tapestry of joy and sorrow woven together by the threads of memory and loss. On this particular day, as Jack wiped down the counter, he spotted Harold stepping through the diner's door. The old man shuffled in, his gait slow but determined. Jack's heart warmed at the sight. He waved enthusiastically, and Harold returned the gesture with a faint smile, his eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. "Good morning, Harold. How are you today?" Jack asked, leaning over the counter. "Better now that I see you, young man," Harold replied, his voice rich but soft. "You know, I almost didn't come in today. I thought I might just sit at home and reminisce about the good old days." Jack chuckled. "And miss out on my culinary delights? You'd never forgive yourself. What can I get you?" "I'll have the usual, Jack. A slice of your famous pie wouldn't hurt either." Harold grinned, his eyes twinkling. As Jack prepared Harold's breakfast, he reflected on their growing friendship. Over the past few weeks, Harold had shared stories that were both heartbreaking and uplifting. He spoke of his late wife, Margaret, who had loved the diner and its people. Harold had once been a successful businessman, but after losing her, everything had changed. The business he had built crumbled under the weight of his grief, leaving him struggling to make ends meet. "Jack," Harold said, breaking Jack's train of thought, "I've been meaning to tell you something." Jack placed a steaming plate in front of Harold. "What's on your mind?" Harold took a moment, looking out the window as if searching for the right words. "You know, life can be a fickle thing. One moment you're riding high, and the next you're scraping by. But it's the moments we share that keep us going. It's important to hold on to those." Jack nodded, understanding the weight behind Harold's words. "I can only imagine how hard it must have been for you, but you've got a lot of wisdom to share, Harold. I'm grateful for our conversations." Harold smiled, his expression warm yet tinged with sadness. "Thank you, Jack. And don't forget, you have your own dreams to chase. Life is too precious to settle for anything less. You want to be a chef, don't you? Don't let fear hold you back." Jack sighed, stirring his coffee. "It's hard, you know. Sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in this diner forever. I want to open my own restaurant, but..." He hesitated, the doubt creeping into his voice. "I just don't know if I have what it takes." "Fear is a thief, my boy. It robs you of opportunities before you even get a chance to seize them," Harold said, his tone firm yet encouraging. Remember, I've seen businesses rise and fall, and I've rebuilt from the ashes. You have to believe in yourself." Jack absorbed Harold's words, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. They continued to chat about food, dreams, and memories, their conversation flowing like the coffee that Jack kept pouring. The bond between them deepened, each story shared like a stitch in a patchwork quilt of friendship. Later that week, Jack decided to bring Harold something special. He spent the evening preparing a home-cooked meal, pouring his heart into every ingredient. He made a hearty chicken pot pie, a dish he knew Harold would love, recalling the way the old man's eyes lit up at the mention of comfort food. When he arrived at Harold's modest apartment, the old man looked pleasantly surprised to see Jack standing on his doorstep, a steaming dish cradled in his hands. "Jack, what a nice surprise! What's that delicious smell?" Harold exclaimed, his expression a mix of curiosity and delight. "I made you dinner. Thought you might enjoy a home-cooked meal instead of diner fare for once," Jack said, grinning. Harold's face broke into a wide smile. "You're too kind, Jack. Come in. Let me find us some plates." As they sat together at the small kitchen table, Jack served Harold a generous portion of the pie. The old man took a bite and closed his eyes, savoring the flavors. This is incredible. You've got a real talent, Jack," Harold said, his voice full of appreciation. "You could make a living off this dish alone." Jack laughed, feeling a swell of pride. "Thanks. I've always loved cooking, but it's just a dream right now." "Dreams shouldn't just be dreams," Harold replied, leaning in as if sharing a secret. "You need to pursue them. Life is far too short to let them slip away. Besides, you have something special. You have a gift." As they continued to eat, the conversation flowed seamlessly from food to life lessons. Harold shared stories of his past, tales of success and failure, love and loss. Jack listened intently, captivated by the wisdom woven into each account. "Jack, you remind me of myself when I was younger," Harold said thoughtfully. "I had big dreams, and I chased them with everything I had. But then life threw me a curveball. Just remember, when the time comes, don't let fear dictate your choices." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of Harold's encouragement. "I won't forget that. You've been a real inspiration to me." Just as they finished their meal, Harold's phone rang, disrupting the warm atmosphere. He glanced at the screen, frowning slightly. "Sorry, Jack. Just a moment." Jack watched as Harold answered the call, his expression shifting from curiosity to skepticism. "Hello? Yes, this is Harold," he said, his voice steady but cautious. Jack couldn't hear the caller on the other end, but he could see the lines of concern etching deeper into Harold's face. "A surprise? I don't know what you mean. I'm not sure I'm interested." He listened intently, nodding occasionally, but Jack could sense the tension in Harold's posture. What could this call be about? After a few moments, Harold ended the call, his brow furrowed. "Just some old acquaintance trying to drum up business," he said dismissively, though Jack could see the flicker of intrigue in Harold's eyes. "I'm not sure what to make of it." "Was it about your past business?" Jack asked, concerned. "Something like that," Harold replied, waving a hand. "You know how it is. People want to talk about the good old days, but I've moved on. Life is about the present and future, not the past." Jack nodded, though a part of him wondered if this call might lead to something more significant for Harold. He had grown to care for the old man and couldn't help but feel a pang of apprehension. What if this mysterious caller brought back old troubles? What if it disrupted the newfound friendship they had cultivated? As the evening wound down, Jack left Harold's apartment with a promise to return soon. He couldn't shake the feeling that this call was only the beginning of something unexpected. It lingered in his mind like a tantalizing mystery, and he found himself looking forward to their next meeting, a blend of hope and uncertainty swirling in his heart. Jack walked home under the dim streetlights, contemplating the complexities of life, the weight of dreams, and the bonds they formed with others. Little did he know, the intertwining paths of his life and Harold's were about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge everything they believed about friendship, fate, and new beginnings. Jack stood in the cramped kitchen of the diner, the air thick with the rich aroma of spices and sizzling meat. The sun had barely risen, casting a golden hue through the small window, illuminating the stainless steel counters and the piles of fresh vegetables waiting to be chopped. Today was the day he'd finally step out of his comfort zone and enter the local cooking competition, an event he had been eyeing for weeks. Each time he thought about it, a mix of excitement and dread churned in his stomach, but the encouragement from Harold, who had become more than just a friend, was enough to push him forward. Taking a deep breath, Jack wiped his hands on his apron and looked around the kitchen, imagining how his own restaurant might look one day. "Gotta start somewhere," he muttered to himself, recalling Harold's words about pursuing dreams no matter the obstacles. He could still hear Harold's voice, soft yet firm, echoing in his mind. "Life is too short to settle for less, Jack." With renewed determination, he gathered his ingredients, each one carefully chosen for the dish he had spent countless hours perfecting. It was a classic risotto, a dish of love and patience, reflecting the culinary roots he had always admired. Jack could hear the clattering of dishes and the chatter of the other diners as they began to trickle in for breakfast, their laughter a comforting background noise. Just then, the bell above the diner door jingled, and in walked Harold, his weathered face split into a wide grin. He was dressed in his usual attire, an old plaid shirt tucked into well-worn trousers, and his silver hair caught the morning light, making him look almost ethereal. Jack felt a rush of warmth at the sight of him. "Morning, Jack," Harold called, his voice steady despite the years etched into his frame. "I wouldn't miss your big day for the world." Jack chuckled, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "You're my biggest supporter, Harold. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Just keep your head in the game," Harold replied, his eyes sparkling with pride. "Show them what you've got. You have more talent than you give yourself credit for." Feeling buoyed by Harold's unwavering belief in him, Jack nodded firmly. "I will, I promise." As Harold settled at his usual booth, Jack couldn't help but steal glances at him while he prepared for the competition. Harold had become a beacon of hope in his life, a reminder that kindness could spark change in unexpected ways. Thoughts of the competition swirled in his mind, but he focused on the task at hand, stirring the broth for the risotto, letting the flavors meld together just right. Hours later, the competition venue was buzzing with energy. Jack arrived, his heart pounding in rhythm with the lively chatter of participants and spectators alike. The room was filled with the scent of fresh herbs, roasted meats, and baked goods, a feast for the senses. Jack looked around, feeling the weight of anticipation settle on his shoulders. "Hey, you got this!" Harold's voice cut through the noise, and Jack turned to see him standing near the entrance, waving enthusiastically. His heart swelled at the sight of his friend, who had made the effort to come and cheer him on. "Thanks, Harold," Jack called back, the encouragement giving him a much-needed boost. As Jack moved to the cooking station assigned to him, he felt the competitive atmosphere thicken. Other contestants were already setting up, some chatting nervously, others exuding confidence. Jack took a deep breath, reminding himself of Harold's words. He had come too far to falter now. The competition began with a countdown, and Jack dove into his preparation. Each chop of the knife echoed in his ears, each measure of rice and broth was infused with his hopes and dreams. As he stirred the risotto, he could almost envision the restaurant he wanted to create, a place filled with laughter, good food, and the warmth of friendship. Yet, as the minutes ticked away, self-doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. What if he messed it up? What if his dish didn't stand out? He glanced at the other contestants, each one focused and determined, and felt a twinge of insecurity. Would anyone really want to eat his food? "Remember why you're here," he whispered to himself, trying to push the negativity aside. Just then, he caught a glimpse of Harold in the audience, his eyes locked onto Jack with unwavering support. The sight brought a surge of confidence. Jack straightened his back and resumed his work, determined to give it his all. As the final moments approached, Jack plated his dish with precision, arranging the risotto carefully and garnishing it with a sprig of fresh basil. He felt a rush of pride as he stepped back to admire his creation. Not bad for a diner cashier, he muttered, a smile creeping across his face. When it was finally time to present his dish to the judges, Jack's heart raced. He walked to the front, clutching the plate tightly, and met the judges' curious gazes. "This is a classic risotto, made with fresh ingredients and a sprinkle of love," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. The judges nodded, their expressions unreadable as they took bites of his dish. Jack held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He caught sight of Harold clapping enthusiastically in the back, and it gave him the strength to smile even through the uncertainty. After all the contestants had presented, the judges deliberated, and Jack waited anxiously, his mind racing. Just as he was lost in thought, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He fished it out, glancing at the screen. It was a call from the diner manager. "Hey Jack," the manager's voice came through, sounding strained. "We need to talk. It's about the diner." Jack's stomach dropped as he listened, the world around him fading away. The words, "financial troubles," echoed in his mind, drowning out the excitement of the competition. He felt a wave of despair wash over him, his dreams suddenly feeling impossibly distant. As he hung up, Jack looked around, searching for Harold in the crowd. The old man's presence had always provided comfort, but now he felt alone amidst the chaos of the competition and the worrying news he had just received. "Jack," Harold called, pushing through the crowd to reach him. "How did it go? I saw you present your dish." Jack forced a smile, but the weight of the conversation with the manager hung heavily on him. "It went well, I think, but—" He hesitated, unsure how to share the troubling news. "Hey, you're going to be fine," Harold said, reading the worry in Jack's eyes. "No matter what happens today, remember that you've already accomplished so much by just participating." Jack nodded slowly, but felt the burden of uncertainty crushing him. "What if the diner closes, Harold? What if I can't make my dreams come true?" Harold placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. "Dreams are meant to be chased, Jack. No matter the obstacles, you have the talent and the heart to succeed. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." Jack looked into Harold's eyes, seeing the unwavering belief that had become a lifeline for him. "Thanks, Harold. I really needed to hear that." As they stood together, the competition continued around them, but Jack felt anchored by the bond they had formed. No matter what awaited him, he knew he wouldn't face it alone. Jack stood behind the counter of the diner, his heart heavy with the news he had just received. The manager had called him into the back office earlier that afternoon, the tension palpable in the cramped space. "Jack," the manager had said, running a hand through his thinning hair, "we're in trouble. If we don't get more customers soon, we might have to close our doors for good." The words echoed in Jack's mind as he wiped down the counter, the familiar smell of fried food and coffee mingling in the air. He watched as the regular customers came and went, their faces familiar yet indifferent to the turmoil looming over the diner. Jack had poured his heart into this place, dreaming of the day he could bring his culinary vision to life. Now that dream felt distant, almost mocking. The thought of losing his job alongside his friends and co-workers left a bitter taste in his mouth. He leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the bustling street outside, where life continued unperturbed. "Hey Jack," a voice called out, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Harold, his frail friend who had become a steady presence in his life over the past few months. Jack forced a smile, but he could sense that Harold noticed his unease. "How's it going, Harold?" Jack asked, his voice feigning cheerfulness. Harold shuffled over to the counter, his old bones creaking with each step. "I got the usual," he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "A cup of coffee and a slice of that famous pie of yours." Jack poured the coffee and placed the slice of pie in front of Harold, who took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet aroma. "I've been thinking about you, Jack," he said, his voice low and serious. "You seem troubled." Jack sighed, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. "It's the diner, Harold. I don't know how much longer we can keep it open. The manager told me today that we might have to close if we don't get more customers soon." Harold's expression shifted, a mixture of sympathy and understanding flooding his features. That's tough, son. I know how much this place means to you. Yeah, Jack replied, running a hand through his hair. It's not just a job for me. I want to cook, to create something special. But now, I don't know what I'll do if this place shuts down. Harold took a sip of his coffee, his hands trembling slightly as he set the cup down. You know, Jack, life has a funny way of throwing challenges at us. When my wife passed, I thought I could never rebuild. But I did. It took time, and it took a lot of hard work, but I found my way again. Jack looked into Harold's eyes, seeking the wisdom that had carried his friend through the darkest of times. How did you manage it? I feel lost right now, like everything I've worked for is slipping away. Harold leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You need to think outside the box, Jack. You have dreams, and sometimes the universe throws a wrench in the gears to see how badly you want it. What if you thought about alternative ways to make your restaurant dream happen? Maybe it's not just about this diner. Jack furrowed his brow, absorbing Harold's words. You mean like catering or pop-up restaurants? I've thought about it, but I don't know where to start. Exactly, Harold exclaimed, a spark igniting in his eyes. You could start small, host events, collaborate with local businesses, use social media to get the word out. You have a gift, Jack. Don't let the fear of failure hold you back. Jack felt a flicker of hope, a small flame igniting in the darkness. Maybe you're right. I could reach out to some local venues and see if they'd be interested in hosting a pop-up. It could be a way to showcase my cooking and get my name out there. That's the spirit, Harold encouraged, his voice filled with enthusiasm. And if you ever need help, you know I'm here for you. We can brainstorm ideas together. Just then, as they continued their conversation, the low rumble of an engine interrupted their moment of reflection. Jack glanced out the window, his curiosity piqued. A luxurious car pulled up outside the diner, its sleek body gleaming in the afternoon sun. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he watched a well-dressed stranger step out, his tailored suit and polished shoes marking him as someone of importance. Who do you think that is? Jack mused, his brow furrowing. Harold squinted through the glass, his expression shifting from curiosity to recognition. I know that man. That's Alex, an old business partner of mine. I haven't seen him in years. Jack felt a swell of intrigue. What's he doing here? Before Harold could answer, Alex approached the diner, his confident stride cutting through the air. He pushed open the door, and the familiar chime rang out, announcing his presence. The atmosphere shifted, a mix of curiosity and apprehension weaving through the diner. Harold, Alex called out, a warm smile spreading across his face as he spotted the elderly man. It's been too long. Alex, Harold replied, rising slowly from his seat, his eyes narrowing as he took measure of his old friend. What brings you here? I've been looking for you, Alex said, stepping closer, his tone serious. I have an opportunity that I think you'll want to hear about. Jack watched the exchange, feeling like an outsider peering into a world he didn't belong to. As Harold and Alex conversed, he couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting could change everything. The tension in the air crackled with unspoken possibilities. Opportunity? Harold echoed, his brow arched in skepticism. After all these years, you show up out of the blue to offer me something? It's a good opportunity, Harold, I promise you, Alex said, his voice steady. I've started a new venture, and I need someone with your expertise to help manage it. It's a chance to get back into the business world. You can really make a difference. Harold's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation, his mind racing as he weighed the pros and cons. Jack felt a pang of anxiety. He had come to depend on Harold's friendship. The thought of his mentor potentially stepping back into a world that had once caused him so much pain filled Jack with dread. Alex, I don't know, Harold began, his voice uncertain. Think about it, Harold, Alex pressed, sensing the hesitation. You have the skills. You've rebuilt your life once. You can do it again. And this time you won't have to do it alone. I'll be there to support you. Jack leaned against the counter, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to be happy for Harold, to see him thrive and reclaim the life he had lost. But a part of him felt selfish, desperately clinging to the friendship that had blossomed between them. What if this new opportunity consumed all of Harold's time, leaving Jack alone in the diner, left to fend for himself in a world that suddenly felt more daunting than ever? As Alex continued to speak, Jack felt the walls closing in around him. In that moment, he realized that life had a way of shifting in unexpected directions, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for the changes that loomed on the horizon. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the diner, a sleek black luxury car rolled up to the curb. The roar of the engine seemed to disrupt the comfort of the diner's usual ambience, catching Jack's attention as he wiped down the counter. He glanced out the window, curiosity piqued, just as the driver's door swung open, revealing a sharply dressed man in tailored clothes and polished shoes. The stranger stepped out, exuding an air of confidence and purpose that immediately set him apart from the usual patrons. "Who is that?" Jack muttered to himself, his brow furrowing as he watched the man scan the diner before locking eyes with Harold. The elderly man, engrossed in conversation with Jack, seemed oblivious to the approaching figure. "Hey, Harold, is that someone you know?" Jack asked, trying to mask the slight edge of unease in his voice. Harold looked up, his expression shifting from casual to surprised. I think it might be an old acquaintance," he said slowly, his brow furrowing as he squinted through the glass. "I haven't seen him in years." The stranger approached with purpose, his gait confident but not arrogant. He reached the diner's entrance and paused, taking a moment to survey the interior. When he stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed, and the atmosphere shifted. It felt as though the air had thickened with anticipation. "Harold Thompson," the man called out, his voice smooth and steady. Harold's eyes widened and he stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with a scrape against the floor. "Alex," he replied, a mix of surprise and uncertainty lacing his tone. "Is that really you?" "Indeed it is," Alex said, a wide smile breaking across his face. He extended his hand and the two men clasped hands firmly, a bond of the past reigniting in the present. Jack watched from behind the counter, a twinge of jealousy stirring within him. He was happy for Harold to see an old friend, but couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected reunion might change their dynamic. As the two men exchanged pleasantries, Jack busied himself with a stack of dishes, trying to tune out the rising volume of their conversation. "I've been looking for you for some time," Alex said, pulling back slightly to get a good look at Harold. "I heard you've fallen on tough times. I wanted to see if we could talk about a new opportunity I have in mind." Harold's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of hesitance crossing his features. "An opportunity?" he repeated, his voice laced with skepticism. "I'm not sure I'm ready to dive back into that world. It's been hard since Martha passed." "I understand, truly," Alex said, his tone softening. "But this is different. I've started a new venture, and I need someone with your expertise to help me manage it. It could be exactly what you need to get back on your feet." Jack's heart raced as he eavesdropped, his mind racing with possibilities. Could this be a way for Harold to regain his footing? But what would that mean for him? He had grown fond of their weekly meetings, their conversations about life and dreams intertwined with the smell of coffee and the sound of clattering dishes. The thought of losing Harold, of him being swept away into a new world, made Jack's stomach twist. "Alex, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," Harold said, his voice wavering slightly. "I'm not the man I used to be." "Nonsense," Alex replied emphatically. "You have so much to offer, Harold. I can't do this without you. Let's sit down and discuss the specifics. You may find this is exactly what you've been waiting for." As they spoke, Jack could feel his own insecurities bubbling to the surface. Jealousy mingled with a sense of helplessness. What if Harold took this opportunity and didn't look back? What if their friendship faded into the background, replaced by business meetings and late nights? Jack's dreams of becoming a chef felt distant, overshadowed by the specter of losing someone who had inspired him to chase those dreams. "Harold, this could be a new beginning," Alex pushed, sensing the hesitation in the older man. "You wouldn't be alone. We'd build this together. You've always been a visionary. You just need to believe in yourself again." Jack couldn't hold back any longer. He stepped out from behind the counter, wiping his hands on his apron as he approached the two men. "Excuse me, Harold," he interjected, trying to keep his voice steady. "But what kind of business are we talking about here?" Harold turned to face Jack, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Jack, this is Alex. He was an old business partner from my past." "Nice to meet you, Jack," Alex said, extending his hand. "I've heard a lot about you. Harold speaks highly of you." Jack hesitated for a moment before shaking Alex's hand, feeling the smooth grip of someone who had navigated the business world with ease. "What kind of opportunity is this?" Jack asked, his tone cautious. "What exactly are you proposing?" "We're looking to open a new restaurant," Alex explained, his enthusiasm palpable. "I want Harold to manage it. His experience could be invaluable in establishing a successful foundation." Jack's heart sank as he processed the implications. "A restaurant?" he echoed, the word feeling heavy on his tongue. "But what if he doesn't want to leave this place?" "Jack," Harold said, his voice softening, "I need to consider this. It's a big decision." "I get it," Jack replied, trying to keep his emotions in check. "But you've worked so hard to rebuild after everything. This place, our conversations, it means something." Alex frowned slightly, sensing the tension. "I'm not trying to take Harold away from anything. This is an opportunity for him to shine again. We would work together, and I'd like you to be part of it too, if you're interested." Jack's pulse quickened at Alex's words, but doubt clouded his thoughts. "Why would you want me involved?" he asked, skepticism creeping into his voice. "I'm just a cashier here. I don't have any experience in running a restaurant." "You've got passion," Alex replied earnestly. "That counts for a lot in this business. Harold sees potential in you. I see it too. You could learn the ropes alongside him. It's a chance for both of you." Harold looked between Jack and Alex, his brow furrowed in contemplation. "Jack, I've enjoyed our time together. You've inspired me in ways I didn't think possible," he confessed. "Don't say it," Jack interrupted, a lump forming in his throat. "You don't have to make a decision right now. Just think it through. I don't want you to feel pressured." "Pressure is part of business," Alex interjected, his tone firm, yet understanding. "But I want Harold to feel comfortable with this. I want both of you to. Let me know when you're ready to talk more." As Alex stepped back, allowing space for contemplation, Jack felt a wave of emotions crashing over him. He wanted Harold to succeed, to find fulfillment again, but the thought of losing his friend to a world of business felt like a betrayal. He had just begun to forge a bond that felt genuine, and now it was threatened by opportunity. "Let's sit down and talk," Harold finally said, his voice steady. "But I need time to think. This is all so sudden." "Of course," Alex replied, his demeanor shifting to one of patience. "Take your time. I'll be around." As Harold and Alex moved to a corner booth to discuss privately, Jack returned to his cleaning duties, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was changing, and he was powerless to stop it. Would he still have a friend in Harold when the dust settled, or would their paths diverge, leaving him behind in the diner, a fading memory in Harold's new life? Harold sat across the small table from Alex, the well-dressed stranger who had thrust a whirlwind of opportunity into his life. The diner's atmosphere buzzed around them, but the two men were ensconced in a world of their own making. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting angular shadows on the linoleum floor. Harold felt a mix of nostalgia and apprehension, as memories of his past successes collided with the uncertainty of his present. "Harold, I know this is a lot to take in," Alex began, his voice smooth yet urgent. "But I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in your capabilities. We could do something amazing together." Harold's brow furrowed, the lines of his face deepening as he processed the offer. "You want me to manage your new venture?" After everything that happened, I'm not sure I'm ready to dive back in. It's been years since I've been part of that world. Alex leaned forward, his expression earnest. I understand your hesitation, but remember when you were at the top of your game? You had the talent, the vision, and the courage to take risks. I'm not asking you to forget the past, I'm asking you to build a future. Together. Outside, Jack stood by the diner's entrance, feeling an unsettling weight in his chest. He had watched Harold and Alex converse, the old man's face shifting from skepticism to intrigue. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing his friend to a world he had tried to escape. He had grown to cherish their bond, and the thought of Harold stepping back into a high-stakes business environment filled him with dread. Why does everything have to change? Jack murmured to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. His mind raced with thoughts of what Harold's decision might mean. Would Alex take Harold away from the diner? Would Jack lose the only friend who had truly seen him, understood him, and encouraged him to pursue his dreams? Back at the table, Harold sighed, his fingers tapping nervously against the surface. I appreciate your faith in me, Alex, but I lost everything once. I don't know if I have the strength to go through that again. Harold, you're not the same man you were back then. You've endured and you've learned. You have Jack now too. He's a good kid and he looks up to you. You have a support system, Alex pressed, his tone growing more passionate. This could be your chance to not only revive your career but also to help someone else realize their potential. That kid? Harold gestured lightly toward Jack, who stood just outside the diner, peering through the glass with a look of concern etched on his face. He's got dreams of his own. I don't want to overshadow him or throw him into the deep end. Then don't. Bring him along. You can mentor him. Teach him everything you know, Alex suggested, his eyes gleaming with the promise of possibilities. This can be a partnership, Harold. You can guide him, and in turn, he can bring fresh ideas and energy to the table. Harold's heart sank at the thought. Could he really bring Jack into this? The kid had so much potential, and Harold felt an overwhelming urge to protect him from the harsh realities of the business world. Yet, was that a fair assessment? Did he truly have the right to decide Jack's path for him? Meanwhile, Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. He fished it out, glancing at the screen. A number he didn't recognize lit up. Hesitant, he answered, "Hello? Is this Jack? Jack Miller?" A cheerful voice on the other end inquired. "Yes, it is," he replied cautiously. "Jack, I'm calling from the Culinary Institute. We've been following your progress in the local cooking competition, and we're impressed. We would like to offer you a scholarship to our program. You have talent, and we want to help you cultivate it." Time seemed to freeze. Jack's heart raced as the words sunk in. "Are you serious?" he asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "A scholarship? To culinary school?" "Yes, you've shown great promise, and we believe you could be a standout chef. This is your chance to learn, grow, and ultimately achieve your dreams," the voice continued, enthusiasm palpable through the phone. Thank you so much," Jack exclaimed, unable to contain his excitement. He felt as if a weight had been lifted, the fog of uncertainty lifting to reveal a path forward. "I can't wait to start." As he hung up, Jack's joy was momentarily overshadowed by the thought of Harold. He turned to see his friend still engaged in conversation with Alex. Jack felt a mixture of happiness for himself and concern for Harold. Would his friend feel left behind? What if this opportunity meant that Jack would have to move on while Harold remained in the diner, mired in past regrets? Suddenly, he saw Harold start to stand, his expression shifting as he locked eyes with Jack. A smile spread across Harold's face, one that was both proud and knowing. Jack felt a surge of hope. Perhaps Harold would be happy for him after all. "Hey, Jack," Harold called, his voice warm and inviting. "I need to talk to you about something." Jack swallowed hard, his heart pounding as he walked over. "What's up, Harold?" "Alex has just made me an offer I'm seriously considering," Harold began, glancing at Alex, who nodded encouragingly. "He wants me to manage a new venture of his, but there's more. I want you to be part of it." Jack blinked in surprise, feeling the ground shift beneath him. "Me? In what way? Alex thinks you'd make a great addition to the team. I want you to manage the kitchen, to take the reins on the culinary side. This could be a chance for both of us, Harold said, his eyes shining with excitement. I don't want to step away from you, Jack. I want you to come with me. Jack's heart raced as he processed the enormity of Harold's proposal. But I just got a scholarship offer. I mean, this is amazing, but I don't want to take away your chance to rebuild. Listen to me, Harold said firmly, his gaze steady. This is not about taking anything away. We can work together. You can learn while you help me shape this new venture. You'll have the support of a mentor and the freedom to create. Jack felt a swell of emotion. You really want me to do this? Of course I do, Harold replied, a grin breaking across his face. You have talent, Jack. You've shown me that. This could be the beginning of something incredible for both of us. In that moment, Jack understood that their friendship had forged a bond stronger than he ever anticipated. They were in this together, two unlikely companions navigating the unpredictable waters of life, each supporting the other's dreams and aspirations. Okay, let's do it, Jack said, determination flooding his voice. I'm in. Harold reached out, clasping Jack's shoulder with a firm grip. Let's make this happen, kid. As they stood there, their futures intertwined in ways they never expected, Jack felt a sense of hope wash over him. The diner, once a place of routine and uncertainty, had transformed into a launching pad for dreams, and in that moment, surrounded by Harold and Alex, Jack realized that friendship and support could indeed come from the most unexpected places, forever altering the course of their lives.